time to turn things up. This pre-workout combination of Expedite and Aerobitin is the Fat Attack Stack from Snack. I usually take both about 15 to 20 minutes prior to my workout. It's the perfect time to get after it.
Eddie, two questions. First off, what's your response to fans saying that Canelo is picking the easier fight in Bivol instead of fighting Charlo and Benavidez?
Okay, well, Charlo has looked absolutely dreadful in his recent fights. You cannot compare the challenge of a middleweight like Jermall Charlo that's had no standout victories at all and hasn't looked good in any recent fights to a big, strong, unbeaten light heavyweight world champion in Dmitry Bivol. So Canelo's just not interested in fighting a voluntary defence against Jermall Charlo. He'd rather step up and fight a champion for his belt with a plan which is ultimately over the next probably 12 to 18 months become undisputed at 175. I think as well, a lot of those guys, and by the way, I spoke to Jose Benavidez last night, who's here. They appreciate, well, he does because, you know, he's not a hype man or anything like that Benavidez needs a proper win. And it's not his fault, by the way. I truly believe that Jose Benavidez and David Benavidez want to have big fights. But it's a bit like Demetrius Andrade. You know, they're all great fighters, but that's why I said to David last night, let's just make that fight, Demetrius against Benavidez, you know, and because I feel like maybe part of Canelo also thinks, well, I had to fight all these tough fights coming up to sort of make my name. You know, why don't you go and fight one of these real fights? But it's not. I think Charlo has actually turned down a lot of fights, that's what I believe. I know he turned down the Andrade fight for a lot of money, but I genuinely think Benavidez is a guy that wants to be in big fights and he's willing to test himself. And I think down the line, Benavidez, Canelo, I'm sure will happen, because what I can reassure you is that Canelo Alvarez will fight absolutely anyone.
Did he tell you straight out, like, Charlo doesn't interest me, it doesn't interest me, like, I don't like that fight at all?
No, I mean, I don't really, you know, the situation was everybody made their offer. Him and Eddie looked at it and said, we want to go with Matchroom. And, you know, it's probably a mixture of they liked the fights and they wanted to work with Matchroom over anybody else. So that was a blessing and tremendous. And I know everyone's talking about the gennady Golovkin fight, but he's got a real handful on his plate May 7th.
Does he?
Against Bivol. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because it's different.
It would bring up Bivol didn't look too great in his last fight either.
Yes, but the problem is when you're fighting guys that you're... Bivol's been waiting for an opportunity for a long, long time. He boxed Craig Richards, he boxed Salamov, two fights that he wasn't really motivated with, and those guys came in and put in good performances. This is different. You know, Bivol is not a faded light heavyweight. He is a young, strong, unbeaten, hungry light heavyweight world champion. And this is technically a really good fight and a very tough challenge, you know. And I think if you start, you can't say about Charlo and say, oh, he didn't look great in his last fight about Bivol and not say that about Charlo. Awful. Awful. Was it against Montiel or something? I mean, awful.
But then they would say, Eddie, Benavidez is not, he's the young guy. And then you got Golovkin who's older, and they're like, well, it looks like this route is easier. What would you say to that? Yeah.
No. I mean, you've seen two of the best fights I've ever seen with Canelo Golovkin, and now you're going to see a third. But Canelo Benavidez is a great fight, and I'm sure it will happen. Let's see Benavidez fight someone of note. He's a tremendous young fighter, and I'm sure that fight will happen.
After May, then we're going to see Benavidez and Andrade. Like, you're pretty certain, confident.
I think they've both got interim fights, but then Samson Leskovich said he wants over $7 million for that fight, and he wants more. What? I mean, what are these people smoking? You know what I mean?
Eddie, I know I only had a short time with you. I'll see you during the week. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching this video. And make sure to subscribe for more videos of your favorite fighters over here on Fight Up TV. And give us a follow online as well at Fight Up TV on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate it, guys.